So it'll take one more hearing for the court to deliver the final verdict and really decide the fate of the troubled leader. Now, why one more? We are joined by legal expert Kim Ji-soo. Welcome back, Ji-soo.
Thank you for having me again.
Thanks for joining us. Ji-soo, why do you think the court decided to have an extra hearing? I mean, any reason behind the court's decision? Why one or why not two?
The court scheduled only one extra hearing instead of two because it likely believed that one more session is just enough to finalize this whole process without unnecessary delays. And basically, the court is aiming to wrap things up efficiently while making sure they've got everything they need to make a fair ruling. And that's why the court set up eight sessions for the hearings in the first place, because they thought that would be enough to cover everything that it was important. However, they decided to add an extra hearing to clarify arguments, quoting, they will settle out some important documents and evidence that haven't been fully looked it over into yet in the ninth, giving them one last chance to tidy up their arguments before the final decisions. So the ninth hearing looks like as if it's the last straw. President Yoon's call for witness will be decided today, which shows a strong will for court to not extend any more hearings than 9th.
So it's going to be another crucial day next Tuesday. Now, what will the last hearing was supposedly focus on then?
The court will focus to make sure all the evidence has been properly looked over and that both sides have everything laid out clearly. And it's like a final review that no details are missed before making a big decision. And as for the key witnesses, it is unlikely that many of President Yoon's requested witnesses will be approved. The court is likely to stick with the evidence and testimonies that they already have. There was a talk about bringing in more witnesses from President Yoon's side, like Prime Minister Han Deok-soo, but that probably won't happen either since the court made a firm rejection of a called witness. However, we might see some people come back for a bit more questioning if the court thinks it's necessary, such as former NIS Deputy Director Hong Jang-won and a police chief officer Cho Ji-ho, as their testimony seems to be relevant in the court. So the decisions will be also made by this day of today.
Well, President Yoon's side again requests to bring in Prime Minister Han Deok-soo as a witness yet again. Ji-soo, do you think the court will accept the request this time?
Well, the court has already turned down the request to have Prime Minister Han Deok-soo testify once, and it looks like they will probably do it again. Basically, they don't see his testimony as directly relevant to the main issues of President Yoon's impeachment, like whether there was a violation of the Constitution or an abuse of power. However, President Yoon's team seems to pushing it for anyway because it might be a strategic turnout, or it may sway public opinion, or it might set up a basis for challenging the court's decision later on.
Well, in the meantime, Yoon's side also has appointed 3 additional lawyers. That increases the total number of representatives to 22, at least 22. What does it mean to have more legal experts, especially when the trial is coming to an end?
Well, we need to first look into the lawyer's background. President Yoon's team has brought in someone like attorney Jeon Byung-wan, who's got first-hand experience with impeachment trials where he have represented former President Park Geun-hye. So by adding lawyers who are familiar with the constitutional court's process, the team is clearly looking to strengthen their strategic approach. However, when it comes to is bigger always better, it's like when sports team adds more star players. It's great on paper, but what really matters is how well they play together. And more lawyers mean more brains to strategize, but the challenge is making sure they all sync up and work effectively as a team.
So for now, there is just one extra hearing scheduled for next Tuesday. So even with one more hearing on the 18th and more witnesses you just mentioned, the impeachment trial is expected to wrap up in March, would you say?
Yes, I would say with one more hearing on the 18th, the direction of today's decision on new witness is quite crucial. And if no additional witnesses are added, we're definitely on track to conclude the trial will be wrapped up in March. And what will happen next if new witnesses like Prime Minister Han Deok-soo are approved, the timeline could extend, potentially delaying the conclusion. Otherwise, the 8th could be our final session. And as for the consequences of the court's ruling, if the court rules that President Yoon is guilty, this could lead to an election in May. And if the court rules in in favor, he would return to the office immediately.
Alrighty, Jisoo, thank you so much for connecting with us. As always, you have a wonderful day.
You too.